Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today it's time to talk about a card that I am very excited about. If you've watched this channel for a little while, you should know that I am a real fan. For some reason, I really get excited about Stage 1 Pokemon with good attacks for a single energy attachment. Donphan Prime was a deck with which I really made my name as a player. We could also look at the Donphan from Plasma Storm. We could look at the Mean Chow from Furious Fist. We could look at Excadrill. There are just a bunch of these kind of cards that make me very happy. Well, today, ladies and gentlemen, we've got another card coming, which is a Stage 1 fighting Pokemon with a good attack for 0 energy. And might I suggest, that's even more exciting. What we've got coming in here is Hisuian Arcanine. A Pokemon I'm not hugely fond of, honestly. It's fine. But oh my goodness, has it got an attack for me. Translation, of course, from the lovely Antoine Boulet, which by now, honestly, you probably should have guessed. Incidentally, we did have a Hisuian Arcanine that came around in Sword and Shield 10, the previous set, Time Gazer, over in Japan. But I'll be honest with you, it's 2 fighting energy, 1 colorless, 80 damage, but 160 if you've also got a fire energy on. And you also get burned, but it's not good enough, alright? That's not what we're excited about. What we're excited about is this new one. So what we've got here is 130 HP, which is very relevant because you've got stuff like Rapid Strike Urshifu running around that does 120. And sure, they've often got damage modifiers, but there's no guarantee, so that's quite nice. A weakness to Grass, which is just not being hit very much at the moment, but then you do only have 130 HP. And there is an attack for 1 fighting, 2 colorless energy that does 100 damage. We're not going to be talking about this. It's not good enough. I'm not excited. If I've got to put 3 energy on this, something's gone very wrong. I'm having a bad day. I'm not winning this game. Because to be fair, I might not even be playing any energy in my deck. Because for 0 energy, it's a Hisuian Pokemon. They can have 0 energy attacks. As long as you have no cards in your hand, you do 160 damage. Incidentally, you can use the attack if you do have cards in your hand. However, you only do 10 damage, so maybe not. And at this stage, some of you are going to be thinking, well, hang on a second, well, see, that looks a little bit familiar. It should. It's Granbull from Lost Thunder. And incidentally, I played Granbull from Lost Thunder at multiple tournaments. I top got a couple of league challenges, league cups with this. This is a card I'm very fond of and saw a bit of success with. Now, that one was 30 plus 130 if you have no cards in hand. So the only difference is it's 30 plus 130 rather than 10 plus 150. It doesn't really matter. They're both terrible if you've got cards in hand. And great if you don't. The thing is, whereas Granbull was just a generally good, efficient attacker, what you've got with Hisuian Arcanine here is you've got a great typing. And make no mistake, this is one of the things that makes this such a good card. One of the reasons I always end up playing fighting decks, or often, is because fighting is usually a really good typing in the format. If we look right now, you're hitting weakness against Arceus V-Star, and Arceus V-Star is absolutely everywhere. It is one of the very best cards in the entire game right now. Gengar VMAX still sees a bunch of play, and that's weak to fighting. Jolteon VMAX admittedly has dropped off a little bit, did not show up at the EUIC last weekend, but it's still a good deck with a lot of potential. That's weak to fighting. And of course, I showed you the other day that Hisuian Zorowak is looking like an absolute powerhouse, and that's weak to fighting. And none of these Pokemon have more than 320 HP, even the VMAXs, which means against any of these Pokemon, for 0 energy, I can go and get a 1-hit KO. And sure, against others, I'm not getting a 1-hit KO. But I think one of the things you need to bear in mind is you don't have to get a 1-hit KO against everything. This is 2-hit KOing basically anything relevant in the game. Admittedly, you do have stuff like Urshifu that is 330, so you'll need to find 10 more damage, but stuff like Choice Bout exists. There's a million different options, it's fine. So I'm basically 2-hit KOing anything, while 1-hit KOing anything that's weak, and also 1-hit KOing single prizes, because that's the other thing. If I can keep this going, if I can get this train rolling, I am trading beautifully with single prize decks. I absolutely adore this. So here, the only real question is, how am I going to get 0 cards in hand, and how am I going to recover from having 0 cards in hand? Because that's a really big issue, right? The fact that actually when you pull this off, you're going to have a 0 card hand, and that's going to be a problem. Well, it's really not that much of a problem. Now, remember, this is essentially a post-rotation card. This is going to be in our August set. We're going to rotate end of August, beginning of September. It's not ideal. We're losing Rose Tower. Stadium card lets you draw 2, got 3 cards in your hand. That would be great. But it's really not the end of the world. You could try some weird thing with Genesect, where you basically use 3 Genesect and try and draw until you got 3 cards in your hand, but keep doing it. It's awkward, but possible. But there are better options. One better option is Kricketune. Kricketune will survive the rotation. That is a once during your turn, regardless of how many Kricketune. Like I say, having multiple Genesect is awkward, but at least you can stack them. Kricketune, draw 2, got 3 cards in your hand, but you cannot use it more than once. But you've got Bibarel. And this is one that I'm really thinking about here, because Bibarel lets you draw until you got 5 cards in your hand, and that basically recovers really, really nicely. Kricketune's good, and I'd probably end up playing 1 Kricketune just for that. Bibarel's good, Rose Tower is rotating, but we've got options. And really, and let's be clear, what you're looking for here is cards that draw until you have X amount in your hand, so that you can recover from a completely empty hand. That is the goal here. But we've got some. So I think we're going to be fine. But then you've got the question of, well, hang on a second, how do I get to 0 cards in hand? And the answer is, it's not that difficult at the moment. We are heading into a format where it is easier and easier and easier to empty out your hand. So you've got the obvious things like Ultra Ball, lets you discard 2 cards from your hand and search for a Pokemon. So obviously you discard, you got a 3 card hand, discard 2 with Ultra Ball, search a Pokemon you can play, and then you're good. That'll work. One I really like here is Galarian Articuno. Lets you discard 2 cards from your hand to draw a card. It's a -1, essentially. Now, you might draw an unplayable card, which would be rubbish, or you might be forced into playing something like a Professor's Research and have to start the whole chain again, but there is a decent chance this can at least lower your hand size nicely. But let's not forget we're getting Grant. Grant is that card whereby it lets your fighting Pokemon do an extra 30 damage during your turn, which is actually super useful because this is a fighting Pokemon. But also, you can discard 2 cards from your hand to put it from your discard into your hand. So what you can essentially do is use Grant to discard 2 cards from your hand, and then discard this with something else, and then do it again, and then if this is the only card in your hand, you just play it, and then you're doing 190 for 0 energy, which is frankly pretty gosh darn cool. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are rolling. There's plenty of other things out there. I'm not going through every possible option, but between stuff like Ultra Ball, Grant, Galarian Articuno, and then of course you can just play your deck. Have lots of burnable cards to lower your hand size. It's what Genesect decks do a lot of the time to make sure they've got a low hand size. Play stuff like Cram-O-Matic, as an example. Discards an item card from your hand, flips a coin if head, search for any card. Well, you know what's really good about that? You can guarantee that the card you draw just so happens to be something you can immediately play, and then you're emptying out your hand that way. There are many different ways. Some formats, it's not that easy. This is not that format. Quite frankly, right now, you should, more so than in an awful lot of formats, be able to build a deck that empties out your hand. Oh, and we've also got Greedent. We've got that new Greedent coming for 2 energy. You do 210 damage, which is enough to KO most Pokemon V. You will need an extra 10 damage to get them all, which is a bit sad. But it makes you discard your entire hand. So then you start your next turn with a 1-card hand, play it, attack with Arcanine, and you are good to go. I like the combo of these two together. I like how most Pokemon V will be taken down by Greedent doing 110, and then the next turn you've got an empty hand, so you are ready to go. The retreat cost of 3 on Greedent is kind of annoying, I will be honest with you, but I still like this very, very much indeed. I am a very big fan of this. And this is probably the point in the video where we need to mention Zorowak. There are so many Stage 1 Pokemon around at the moment, and every time I mention them, I just mention Zorowak. It lets you discard a Stage 1 that you've got in play and replace it with a Stage 1 in your discard pile. So I can play a 4/4 line of Zorowak, and I can play Greedent, but I can also play Hisuian Arcanine, or I can play Mightyena. Remember, that attacks for 0 energy if your opponent's got a VMAX on the board, and that does 160, but you are a Darkness-type Pokemon. Incidentally, phenomenal counter to Mew. I don't know if Mew's going to be great post-rotation. Nobody really does till we get there. But if Mew is even a slight little problem, hey, you've got the perfect counter. And again, we talked about this in a bunch of videos. I'm not going to keep going in this particular one. Maybe in the future we need to do a video really focusing on this. But the fact of the matter is, because we've got Zorowak, you can make a Stage 1 Toolbox deck. And you can make a deck which empties out your hand and plays Hisuian Arcanine and goes along that route. And that can be a really good deck. But you can also play it with literally any other Stage 1s you want. Because remember, the fact that you're not using any energy here means you can use a 0 energy deck, still use stuff like Mightyena, etc. But you can also just tech in literally any Stage 1s you want, play them with literally any energy you want, and then just make a box deck along those lines. I think this could be better than Granbull. And I don't think that's particularly, a controversial statement. It's a way better weakness than Granbull ever did. It's absolutely so much better in that regard. And I think we've got really good partners around at the moment. And I think just on its own, this could be really good. But then you start building in that we've got that new Zorowak, it's not even that new, the one from Evolving Skies, that gives you a real Stage 1 toolbox. And quite frankly, if you see me at tournaments next year, and I'm hoping to go to a lot more tournaments next year, it's almost a guarantee at this stage you're going to see me playing some Stage 1 jank based around that Zorowak from Evolving Skies. And there is an excellent, excellent chance that some of those decks are going to have Hisuian Arcanine in. I love it. For me, I'm giving it 5 Wassies. It's one of my favourite cards we've had in years. I'm not exaggerating. But again, I did play a ton of that Granbull. Realistically, I think it's a 4 Wossie card. I think this genuinely has a chance to be a legitimately great deck. And I think we're going to see a lot of this card. And even if we don't see a lot of it from everybody else, you should see a lot of it from me. But now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to know what you think about this. Also, Kato artwork, got to point it out, it's beautiful. So let me know about this and what you think about it in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.